basically, I think what happened was 3 years ago, the district decided to have more of a focus on problem solving because we really wanted our kids to have those more critical thinking skills that are required for problem solving and be able to use those not only with math, but hopefully, in their other subjects too. And so we hired Deb Armitage to come in and consult with us. And prior to that, basically our fourth grade teacher had been the only one really doing, I would say, really doing problem solving. And because math portfolio was at fourth grade, and so she really felt the I don't want to say the burden, but but that's where the NSREs were. That's where math portfolio was, and so she really took it upon herself to do a tremendous amount with problem solving. But until the kids got to her, they really didn't have much of a background in problem solving. So then we had the advent of Deb A coming in, and that it really changed everything. And I think part of the reason for that is that teachers felt really comfortable to see how she did the problem solving and then try it themselves. It wasn't like, when you go to a one-day workshop or a conference and then, there's not a lot of follow-through with things like that a lot of times. And so I think for real change to happen, people need time, and it takes a lot of time for real change to occur. And by having the professional development the time that we've had it, and having teachers be able to see Deb model something, model the problem solving, and then be able to try it themselves, get that immediate feedback, be able to try it again. I just cannot believe the changes in people. Our kindergarten teacher, she and I laugh because change is difficult for both of us.
Okay, we're back on.
But I think that for most of our teachers, if they can see something or that's going to make things better for their students and their students are going to be more successful, they want to be able to do it. And what happened was, she would see that modeling of problem solving, and I want to do that. I want to be able to do that with my kids. And that's how the other teachers have been. And so they were really open to seeing these different strategies and techniques for problem solving. And so they'd see her do it, and then they would do it, and they'd get the feedback. And I just think that it's just been such huge growth for the teachers, for our students, and for our whole school. And we see a lot of it when they look at the student work. Deb, when she's here, she goes to the classes, and then she might do a piece when she's here, and then they sit and they look at it and they talk about it. And examining that student work, I'm amazed at what the teachers, with her help, have been able to figure out in terms of, what certain kids are, what they're lacking, how to challenge certain students more. She's really helped us be able to, with the problem solving, differentiate more. Sometimes people think of a student as has a difficult time learning. Well, they're never going to be able to do that problem. They're never going to be able to do that piece. And, she has shown them how that can still happen. The level of difficulty might be different, or the level of, complexity that they solve it with is different. But that struggling learner can be in that class and do that work too. And also on the opposite end, how do you challenge some kid, immediately, gets the answer, but then how do you take them further? And I think she's been a great resource for our teachers for that too. And problem solving's just been a wonderful, way for our kids to be challenged, I think, just all the time. With the situation with the professional development, I think we were really fortunate because having the problem-solving professional development here at a time when I feel like the state has not been as supportive as it used to be with portfolio and with the trainings, and there's just not as available. And so in the time that we've had Deb A here doing the problem solving, we've had 3 new teachers. And so in a small school like this, 3 new teachers is like, huge turnover. And so we were able to have those teachers all trained in problem solving by her. And so we've had that consistency. And I think that's just been, again, just a great benefit to our school. And going back to the student work, though, and not just the student work afterwards, but when they're in the classroom, I'm amazed at the conversations going on between Deb A. and the teachers about what they're seeing when the kids are solving the problems.
Mhm.
And did you notice that this one did this, and did you notice this one did this? And being able to pick up on, I think they've got a gap in this area. And and then all the teachers with the scoring, she's helped us a lot with the problem solving with looking at the rubric and scoring. And we all calibrate. I calibrate 4th grade.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it's great because we have a really good conversations about, why did you think it was that? And we talk about it as a whole staff. And I think it's important that I calibrate too, because then I know what the expectations are for the kids. And I also know where, sometimes the questions that the teachers have,
Yeah.
because I might look at a piece and say, well, I thought it was this, and what did you think? And
Yeah.
and so I understand more where they're coming from.
Tell us how the calibration works.
How we do it here?
Yep.
Okay. What we do here is, I think back to when we did it in January. I give out the practice to everybody. And we've done it, different ways. This is the way we've done it this past year. I give out the practice pieces to everybody. We all do the practice. And then I give out the real thing. And everybody calibrates on their own. And then we come back together and we talk about, how we did and look at the scores and we talk about the problems. And this year, at a faculty meeting, we put up the certain ones where we had questions, and we looked at the ones we had questions on and talked about. And actually, I think there was a couple of mistakes on it, on the actual score. But we looked at what were the questions that we had and why did we think that that was the answer that they had come up with, and why did we come up with what we came up with. But it just is great discussions around student work. And then we talk about, well, our kids would have done it this way, and this is where we think we might have need to look at something in more depth or whatever. But I think it's important, like I said, that we all calibrate, and all of our teachers calibrate. Our special educator calibrates, everybody does. So I think that's really important.
What kind of difference has all of this made in terms of outcomes?
Well, our school has always scored pretty well. And so I think it's harder to show huge improvement when you're already doing really well. But our scores in this supervisory union, our scores are 20 to 30 points, percentage points higher for kids who are proficient or proficient with distinction. And so I think that's a pretty big difference. And we don't see the gap here that there's a statewide quite a large gap for students who are on free and reduced lunch and students who are not on free and reduced lunch, and we don't see that gap here, and I think that's really noteworthy. And I think that our scores, even though we haven't had huge gains, we have had steady small gains, and I think that is important because the first year of the kneecap testing, kids were allowed to take an out-of-level test. And so we had several students who took an out-of-level test. The following year, they were not allowed to do that. And so, I think that really, it was hard to compare apples to apples, with that situation. And also the second year, they included our 7th graders who were not tested here. That's administered at the middle school. So it's another variable that, we're not in control of. But those scores were counted too. So I think with those factors that we still improved, because I really expected with those two factors to see a drop that first year, and that would become our baseline data. But we didn't. We saw still a steady growth. And I think that we see, even beyond the data, just today I was talking with one of the teachers about, where do we see some of these benefits? And kids are solving problems in more ways. Instead of, they all can do this and, the basics, but they're solving problems in so many different ways now, in more creative ways. And I think that's and that's not going to be measured by the test, but I think that's a really important difference. And just their language, When you walk into a classroom and you hear the kind of language that they're using, and the fact that we've had consistent language now in the classes. And, our fourth grade teacher, I think she's just like in seventh heaven now that the people before her are doing all this problem solving work. And you really do see a big difference in the kids as they are going from year to year now. And the teachers are just like, wow, I can't believe I can go so much further with them now than I could before.
Mm-hmm.
And like with Val, basically she used to start at ground zero in fourth grade, and now she's, I can be doing this and this and this, and just going so much further. So I think that with the professional development and the amount of time that they've been able to spend on this and have it be a focus has really made this so this is something that will continue here no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Even though like now the state doesn't require calibration, doesn't require certain things with portfolios, and this school is really committed to doing that because we see the difference that it makes for kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll keep doing it even if somebody doesn't tell us to do it.
This is great.
But I'll let you talk for a minute.
No, you've been doing a great job. Have you seen any difference in the other subject areas as a spin-off from this? You mentioned the critical thinking that you...
It's an area that we're going to continue to focus on. I think we've seen it certainly has helped because the whole, what do you go through to solve a problem and what are the steps you take, or, you use very similar strategies in the other content areas. So I think that certainly has helped. It's an area that I think, we still need to improve on. And because it's the hardest one. Those are the really difficult things for kids to do.
Yeah.
So we're still going to need to improve on that. But I think a really important piece is that we don't jump on every bandwagon here. When I think that when we see things that are going to help kids, we really look at whatever the initiative is and talk about it, and we don't jump on every bandwagon, but when we do something, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it well.
Mm-hmm.
And we really believe that you can't do a lot of things well. You can't be going in, so many different directions and do all those things well. And so what we pick to do, we really commit to. And I think problem solving has been something that we said this is important, this is going to help our students, and I think we've made a commitment to it, and I think it's really paid off. And I think it's a lot of work for in terms of the teachers. I don't think that they see it as an add-on or an extra. This is something that is part of what they need to do to help their kids be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the way the problem solving has worked with some of the things now with our paras even. When Deb A comes and she has the problem solving piece, but she's got the planning piece that gives them some of the language and connections. And I see such growth in our paras helping our students.
Mm-hmm.
That's been tremendous too. And then we're really excited about next year because we're going to be looking at next year for our local assessment plan, a computational fluency. We're going to do trimester assessments, and the problem solving is going to be a lot of the problem solving work aligned with investigations that Deb has worked on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's just going to be, to have it aligned with their investigations. And we were just talking about it last night's faculty meeting, and we're really excited about that. And it's another area that with the problem solving I've been able to really pick Deb's brain about our local assessment plan and how what we're doing should fit into that or how it should fit us.
Mm-hmm.
And but
Oh, great.